Today we will talk about Bodum, which from old maps should be Boyan's land. And that's interesting because Bodum then becomes Latinized of Boyan's land, and then we know there is a gentleman called either Boyan or Boya, and this is the topic for us today. When we look at this map, which is a sea map from 1694 as well as another sea map, we see it's Boyan's land. I can't get it to anything else. B-O-O-N-S land. So here we have an enlargement, and I think there was no enlargement on that one. Here we have a map from 1800, about 1797, indicating Bodum, which is this island here, Bodum Bisgård and Bodum Church, as well as Bodum By. There is indicated as a farm called Snæver Farm, which means narrow farm, as well as we can see there's a mill. The Dover Keel and the water in here is clearly indicated on this map, suggesting that this island could have been some sort of like, this peninsula could have been an island previously. Move forward a little bit, we have the structure of the island, which shows that we have a high point here on the center of the island, and then small valleys radiating out from there, which at the same time gives some sort of like the separation of the fields. We have some forested area to the southwest here, as well as south here and down here, but most of it is barren. There is a large valley going in here, which kind of creates two separate parts of the island, a southern part and the central part. Further, we have the little peninsula out here called Lindholm, which by low tide can be accessed by vehicles, but I'm not sure if this is working. Some years ago we were there and it was not working. Here a later map. One of the interesting things about this island, there is a lot of place names, and they fall into different groups, like animals, mostly like birds and domesticated animals like ox and others, and then we have place names which could refer to other countries. First of all, of course, just not on the island, but just on the other side, which is Dover, which means basically derover, meaning up there. And then we have Rus Hill, which may refer to Russia. You can look that way to Russia. And you have Fries Valley, I believe it is, Fries Valley, which more or less looks is directed towards the way you would sail to Friesland. And same with Dover. Kiel has the direction of Dover in England, I believe it is in Kent. Many of the names can still be found. Bodum Kær is not accessible to public. I'm not aware of exactly why. And here we have the bird's eye view, indicating the fields and the forest I talked about before. We have a massive area of Bronze Age hills here, in particular these on a row like this, tapped like that on the southwest part here, but also additionally groups of Bronze Age hills here and there, suggesting a long story for this island. Also, we have what is called Bodum Hule, and I previously suggested that hule is hull in the ground. The picture we see here from Thisted Museum shows the lining of a few holes which has been found in center of houses not far from Bodum, just a few kilometers away, a few miles to the northwest. And up there we have additionally hule names still. We have honey, hule, hole, and flesk, hule, could be flesh, or what is that on the pig? I just forgot. They are here clearly indicated, the structure of these, and it's still debated how they came about to have this format. But they have resemblance to the leather structure or the silver plate structure on the Gundestrup, where you some sort of like have fields and they some sort of like knitted together or whatever that is. I find that typical for a period. These are suggested to be 2,000 years old, so is Gundestrup. We do have, I want to start with Bøje or Bodum. So, using the word Bøjen and the spelling of Bøjen, the immediate association is a buoy, shown here on this picture. And if you look to ancient times, it might have been such a balloon like a stomach filled with air from a whale or seal or something like this. There's a picture here of Inuit having such a thing, and then he is trying to catch a seal or maybe a tiny whale with his spear, which has a line to the buoy, and the buoy will keep the whale and the seal buoyant, so it will not dive too deep into the kilometer deep ocean, which is not a big issue here in Limfjorden, which is very shallow, but still then the name Bøje may well find its inspiration in such a thing. I have indicated a few ways we know the name to be spelled in this area in the 1600s and 1700s, quite a few of them. I listed here about 10, but that's more. Further, Bøje and Bolle goes into one another, and it's a complex relationship which is not completely clear at this time. In English we do find the same confusion, or you could say diversions between buoy and bull and boll. So I'm going to leave that for now. That's outside the scope of this work. Yeah. There is in Bodum there is quite a few old maps, and several of these has multiple place names. So it has been a pleasure to extract these and put them on a comprehensive site. I believe it is this one, managed to do this. Yeah, it's quite a bit. And I'm not sure how we should further develop this. But for sure, for example, the oil called Hundsøye, Hundsder, which is at the bottom of the island here, this oil here. I find that interesting because we have a lot of Hund and Hand, both with H-U-N-D and H-A-N-D, and I want to pursue that one. It looks like there could be a gentleman's name of Hanser, because we find this quite a bit around. Then I did study the Visken and Vistendal, which is Visken, or which like Whispering Valley, and it's not clear if that can be attributed to another meaning than whispering, such as gently brush away things. Again, this is not a clear historical relation in these names. And by the way, the site talking about these names, created by University of Copenhagen, has, since Putin started his war and all the attacks, been down, and it says directly that it's been out of order for the past half year, and now it seems to be, and I think it went down in like May, and it's still down by January 2023, unfortunately. So I can't pull from that source of naming stories at this time. Further, we have excellent maps from 1787 already indicating the ownership of the various fields, and another one 1789 very similar. The 1787 is slightly more detailed. One of the special features of the ownership is that around 1525 there was an extremely large amount of owners, and these owners are so diverse and they live so far away from the island that I had to think about how come so many different owners has such a tiny cluster of farms, and how may that have come about. The only theory I can come up with is that at the time of the revolution up here in 1534, just before the Reformation, may have been confiscated and redistributed by, so to speak, a cluster of people who had interest in this, and they then either felt they should share this island, or maybe the island, because it's so easily accessible from the fjords, you could take your ship right up to your own lands, and from the farm you could pull down a wagon or whatever, the harvest from that year. I'm not sure, but anyway, it led to a long study of who are these people and what's the name of these, and I'll come back to this later in this presentation. Bodum Church is a quite old church. The red roof piece here is quite new. All this is clearly reviewed by National Museum. They have a whole booklet about this one. From this booklet I have extracted the naming naming for the purpose of ancestry and genealogy, and being able to identify the people in that booklet, and then find the corresponding site at Guinea. So basically all the people from before 1799 has shown to be identified. It was possible to do this, and all this can be studied at my website. What is there's a few very interesting things about this church. What is the legend is that there was a dispute about the location for where to put the church. So two steers were tied together, and the church was built where these two steers laid down. I don't know that particular story, but they say it's a common story from many churches to refer to calves. Another thing which I find very interesting, and also the National Museum, they say the location of this church, how it's situated on the brink of the island to the north, is very atypical and suggests some sort of like another story to its location. And we have not been able to establish that. Here comes a view into the ownership of the land in the island, and as can be seen here, okay, so it's not 1525, I should have said 1568, where we have all these different owners. They may continue into 1599, they're just not named. Then when we go forward to 1662, 100 years after 1565, there's basically two or three owners. And it continues like this. Essentially, Bodum is the main owner. And and then it becomes divided later than 1788, obviously. But as I said, the interesting thing was, who are these people who owned it 1568? And it says, for example, Fru Jytte til Irup. That means Madame Jytte, who owns the large estate Irup, which is an estate further up north in Thyland. And her full name is written here, Jytte Presbjørnsdatters Fodebusk. She owned the biggest estate she owned was Vosborg. What we see here is she had 5 farms, 2 small farms, and 2 houses at the street houses, Gadehuse. And here is a link to her. There is an additional link over here to a very thorough and more expert website called finholbæk.dk or .dk, which is very useful for most of this work in that period of time, particularly for owners and blue-blooded people in the gentry. When we look down the list here, the next interesting thing is Vestervig Abbey and Ørum Castle. Both of these estates are owned by the Crown in 1568, and they have about 4 farms, 1 small farm, and 4 street houses. And that was King II of Denmark and Norway who had this. And that's very few in this area. Then we go further to Glomstrup, and here we see Kjerlingbjerg, and it's probably Kjerlingbjerg. Mogens Nielsen Krag is his full name, and the largest estate he owned was Akkerkrog, but he also owned Glomstrup, which was not too small at the time. further we have here Niels Juel, Aabjerg i Ulfbjerg, Aabjerg, and he's identified here as Niels Enevoldsen Juel til Aabjerg. Then we have, I think it's, let me see, sometimes I can't read the whole name there, but he is from Gammelgaard, and Christopher Thomsen, Galskud til Gammelgaard, Konumgaard, that's really him. The next ones are Irup and Bodum Church, they own these ones, a couple of farms here. And then it says Erik Lykke Brodskov, og det må være, that's gotta be Erik Lykke Brodskov og Bratskov. Now comes the tricky ones, who is beriget to Bodum. But searching this one, it's clear that it's going to be Birgit Josefsdatter Rikhals af Webnersholm. Rikhals sounds a little like Revs Hals, but I'm not sure. Fru Kara Ryn owns Tandrup Village Estate in Thy, and that's Karen Mogens, der Gyldenstjerne. Fru Bodil til Vildsund, gotta be Bodil Markusdatter og Markus daughter, or Rothstein. Her husband was Jens Christensen Grøn, which is mentioned further down. Anne Fru Iversnes is gotta be Anna Mausdatter Spare in Skåne, and here we have Jens Grøn ved Vildsund, altså that means Jens Christensen Green. So Vildsund gotta be the ferry boat connecting Thyland and Morsland over the Sund. We have Thomas Svendsen, Orningsælingård. Then we have this hard to understand name, Karin Højken in Viborg. But I identified her as Karin Daniels' daughter Plysgaard. She is Johan Ottensen Høken Alling Kloster. That's his wife, Karin Daniels' daughter Plysgaard. So Karin Højkens in Viborg. Stenemgaard, Maren Frut Stenemgaard og Maren Jensdatter Grøn. So that's going to be related to Jens Christensen Grøn. It's got to be his daughter. And all the other ones down here are copies and further to this. So this way we managed to identify in clear terms who is who. And studying their relationship, there's not much which help us understand this, except very few has a clear interpersonal path. The rest of them it's not clear how they are related and how it came about they own land at this island at the same time. So we are going to have to leave it like this for now and say we have done some foundational studies for further investigation at a later time on this one. Here we clearly see the 1568 what is that, transcription from Bodum Sogn, and how these names originally were spelled, and how you just saw how this was researched and investigated into the naming structure you found on the previous chart. what we see here is all the priests from 1530, and we have been able to identify all of these priests except the first one, Thomas Mikkelsen, from 1530. The rest has been located on Geni website. We further have additional information here. We have clear pictures of the Clertis farm here, which is typically number 2 and located not far from the church. So what we have is typically we have Bodum Bisgård up here, the church there, and the priest here. And they have been located just like this for centuries. This picture up here from this map indicates that the kitchen garden for the main house of the household is to the northeast. I find that wonderful that can be checked out. Further, we have the school teacher or kaptajn. We have a list of these, and what confuses the setup here is that the Ydby and Bodum, they do share this function, even though there's 2 schools. So it seems that the leader of the school, he would live in Bodum and he would travel to the house in Ydby and teach over there. If that's the case, we can't at this time establish exactly how that has been taking place. There is in Hurup a second school teacher, and they may interchange here in 1698. For example, Ebbe Rembolsen Skyt, he is in all 3 places, but how that is separated and all this is a little of a guess. This map tries to indicate the location of the school in Bodum, which is hard enough on its own to finally and for sure establish. But these maps try to do this. It looks like there is some sort of a lake or moor up here, possibly you could call it bog. And then the school has been adjacent to this area and kind of moved a little bit around at the bottom of that bog or lake. The ownership from Bodum Bisgård and some of the tenants or managers or whatever have quite a complete row of owners back to 1135, which is quite astonishing. Most pertinent is that it's Berglum, and which was first Vestervig, then the Bisp main seat moved to Berglum Kloster, Berglum Abbey, around 1200. So you will see that it's Berglum who runs this business 1135 and 200 years forward. Then it looks like this may be private owners like brothers, and then again back to Berglum. Then from here it goes with crown for about 100 years, and then goes back to Bodum again. And then we have some private owners coming in in late 1400s. And it seems that a new owner appears here, Thomas Pedersen's Galskøt, after the Reformation. And then we have full list of owner names here. There is a single one we can't identify on Geni website, which is Ernst Helm Andersen Hvid. We do know when he approximately lived and when he owned the farm. Also we know his wife, Maren Mortenstad Funner, but more to this we don't really have. So anyone who can help with this, please do contact me. Here we see the farm. We have to imagine this is again northeast. We have the house, the kitchen, garden, and then we have the stables and probably the horse stables at the bottom here with hay and all this, and the lake for the animals. Very traditional. There's another picture here from a drawing. There seems to have been a little building out here, another small tiny one up here. Yeah. And then we carry on to talk about the story today. And it is a story which involves people in Bodum, and it is to show that a couple of people from this island, from Bodum Bisgård, they do business with Vestervig, and these people are in Viborg, which is the main city about 50 kilometers or more away, which is about a couple of days horse riding at the time, or combined ferry and horse riding, whichever way you're going to do it. And it's not exactly clear what the purpose of the case here is. This is from 1688, the 11th of October, in the court for all of Refs. And there is some sort of accusations and things which seems to have been going on for some time before it comes to court. There's references to happenings in Viborg. There is, you could say, some sort of hidden gestures and suggestions to other things. So we just have to try to guess what can be the purpose of this exercise. But essentially, a person, Niels Nielsen in Vestervig, he had to leave his duties at Vestervig Abbey to attend a court case in Viborg, and which is related to the owner of Vestervig. And then the accused is a person who then took upon himself to fill out these duties, and after some weeks he became impatient and simply had to leave the post and leave it to you could say a third person. And this complicated things, and it seems a lot of anger has happened, possibly business had been lost or whatever it was. So I will just try to read from this case. So we are back in 1688, and we are trying to understand how this case is coming about and what's going on, and I read from the case. Christian Lauritsen from Sønderhå in Jestrup in Sønderhå, and the 8 men are Jens Christensen and a bunch of other people from all around, most of them from Sønderhå and from Vestervig. So it looks like they are trying to really staff this court with people who knows what they are doing. And what we see here is that Christian Nielsen in Bodum met on the previous bailiff in Vestervig on his behalf, and Christian Thomsen in Bedsted in Horsfeld and Michael Olsen in Fuglsang in Bedsted, they were the ones who were doing the subpoenas. And they went to Vestervig Gate and spoke to a fellow called Paul Sørensen, and gave him the court documents. It looks like that was directed at Knud Lang and his child, made Kirsten Heen, and additionally Jeppe Nielsen Ladefoged. That means he is sheriff at Vestervig Abbey. Additionally was sued Laurits Bertelsen in Oxenbølgård, Jens Andersen and Christian Thomsen Tøtterup. And on top of this, Christian Jensen Elsted had been called to the court. What it is all about, it says in this paragraph, that Niels Nielsen's departure from Vestervig in April was announced, and however, his whereabouts were unclear, and it seems that he maybe even had been totally absent. He left his keys with someone else, and this court is trying to establish who did what happened. And it seems that he is now in arrest, like in jail in Vestervig. So possibly this proceedings could continue in Vestervig court. They have their own court up there. So what we see here is just what happened at the main court, which is this court, Grevs Herres Court. So Hans Nielsen, the previous officer at Vestervig, he won that at the end of April, when Niels Nielsen at Vestervig, he left the farm, and Niels Nielsen had entrusted him with the keys and the cabinet in the writing room with a number of recipes and undertakings in it, accounting and so on, concerned. So Hans Nielsen promised him to record the accrued income and expenses and to stay at the place until Niels Nielsen returned home. And Hans Nielsen stayed on this position until the day in the month of May. Then he had to hand over the keys, and the locker was sealed, and then he left. However, before this happened, he wrote a letter to Viborg to Niels Nielsen regarding it, and got word back from him that Niels Nielsen would hurry up first and send a copy of a summons which he was cited to the county council on his favorable welfare of husbands, his behalf. Hans Nielsen seems to be a brother to Niels Nielsen, so I guess we have to guess that Hans Nielsen was trusted this because he was brother to Niels Nielsen and they trusted one another. Then come other people forward, and that's Christian Christensen, who is sort of tenant at Bodum Bisgård. He is leasing it. That he was aware that Christian Sørensen in Bodum was in Viborg with a letter from Hans Nielsen to his brother Niels Nielsen. At the same time, a letter was brought back again from Niels Nielsen, both to Hans Nielsen, who among other things announced that he intended to go home to Vestervig as soon as possible. Then it seems that Christian Sørensen is in the court. He's in Bodum. He won with he sworn the oath, took the oath, and with raised fingers as his custom. that Niels Nielsen spoke, that Nielsen went to his brother's house in Viborg, and then there he told him that he intended to return to Vestervig first, as soon his errand to Mrs. Cornelia Bigster, Anne Datterspigter von Engelnburg, which is the owner of Vestervig, when her business in Viborg had finished. Then it seems that Christian Christensen and Ejler Madsen from Brendgård, Christian Christensen is from Bodum Bisgård, those have a combined oath here that Niels Nielsen was with them as they had accounts to collect in Hanherred in June. So Hanherred is way up north, about 80 kilometers north of here, and they had some accounts to collect there. He was with them, but he said he wanted to go to Vestervig and ask him to speak with him when they came up to the market. There's got to be a market up in Hanherred. They attended, and furthermore, Ejler Madsen and Peter Thomasen barefoot one. It seems they were in Brendgård at the same time. Niels Nielsen was there in June. Jeppe Nielsen, the bailiff for Vestervig, came there. Then the Nielsen went out towards him and told him that he had come so they could feel at home. And then Nielsen hesitated because he could be joined with Ejler Madsen's wagon up to Vestervig, who wanted to go to the market on the same day. So there is some sort of like a track record they are trying to establish. Finally, Christian Christensen and Ejler Madsen announced that they were at Vestervig the same day Niels Nielsen came to Vestervig. Then they went to his chamber door, wanted to talk to him, and there the door was locked and he was inside, and they were refused to talk to him by, actually, it looks like Knud Lang and Ejler Madsen, and Ejler Madsen was shown off the farm with many harsh words by Knud Lang. And that's the end of the court case. That's the only thing we have about this. But what we do see is the relations between Bodum, Vestervig, Viborg, and the market in Hanherred, and how they are trying to establish who is covering who, how they can trust who, and so on and so forth. So there's got to be some issues, and it looks like Niels Nielsen then is in jail in Vestervig, and at this court they are trying to establish his whereabouts and who was doing what with him and who knows, and can confirm his traveling and his doings. And thereby the court could say, we now have established Niels Nielsen's whereabouts and his doings. And probably this document may have been transferred to Vestervig Abbey, where they have their own local court. The only thing I can see from the court documents at this time, I have not transcribed a lot of them, but I can see that we have some cases where Ejler Madsen, his son Thomas Mogensen and Kirsten Andersdatter, but he had some issues with some grazing and other things in the court. And Christian Christensen has a few other cases similarly about grazing and other stuff, also related to Vestervig. So it looks like Ejler Madsen and Christian Christensen has some business going on with Vestervig prior to this, and possibly the payments and things like this had to go through Niels Nielsen, but instead it went through Hans Nielsen, and then maybe it fell through, so there is some issues there. And that concludes the presentation today. Thank you. Next time is going to be Hurup, and look forward to hear from you how you want to proceed with these presentation for for the parishes in Thailand. Thank you, and see you soon in another.